Welcome back, Worldhoppers, to the 5th collection of Words of Brandon that I've curated over the past few months. This is one of my favorite collections so far. It's a great mix of many brand new Words of Brandon that just came out over the past few months and some older ones over the past few years that I've just found to be extremely relevant and interesting. So sit back, relax, let me know in comments what some of your favorite Words of Brandon are in this collection, and let's get started.
You've hinted before that Hoid is in reality much more self-interested than he is perceived to be and walks a path you yourself said you probably wouldn't condone. Yet at times we see him share touching personal moments with multiple characters, such as during Shallan's childhood or helping Kaladin through several rough patches. Are these also to serve his own interests or goals, or are these genuine moments he shared with them?
Hoid is legitimately empathetic to the individual. This is how he is. He is very empathetic to people's problems. But in the grand scale, he is more self-interested than I think people are seeing in fandom him being. These things aren't mutually exclusive. He can be very empathetic to the problem Shallan is going through, while at the same time understanding that if Roshar were destroyed but Odium were contained, that it meets his goals better than if other things were to happen. If he were said, all right, you can sacrifice Roshar, Odium is contained forever, he would probably say yes. Meaning all these people that he's empathizing with would be dead. And so, like many of us, a complex morality. But those are legitimate moments of empathy on his part where he is trying to make their lives better. But it doesn't mean that every motivation he has is purely altruistic or purely aligned with what the people on Roshar would want.
In Secret History, we see orbs of connection that Kelsier uses, and it draws lines between him and other objects. If Vin were to, in the Well of Ascension era, use that orb and also pull the mists in, would she be able to steel push or iron pull on non-metal objects?
So here's the thing. There are ways to steel push on non-metal objects, but that's not the method.
Atium alloy?
What do you mean by atium alloy?
Atium steel alloy or atium iron?
Oh, okay. We're straying into Raffo territory. But let's just say that it is possible.
So Renarin, as we've seen, is not a normal truth watcher, whether you want to call him corrupted or enlightened. Is he the first truth watcher of this kind to have existed?
What an excellent question. Yes, he is.
Could Navani open a perpendicularity when she got far enough in her oaths?
Could Navani open a perpendicularity? This is theoretically possible.
You have talked about writing a book about Ashen, the first planet in the Rosharan system. You've said that they have a magic system based on disease, but they are currently without a shard.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the source of that magic system is?
So, a lot of the magic systems in the Cosmere, I kind of in my head differentiate kind of the primary worlds and the secondary worlds. And even on the secondary worlds, there is magic. And any place that a shard has been in presence is going to leave behind an after effect. But it's not always that. Like, I would call most of the magic on Ashen cultivation-based, most likely. And cultivation's in the system, but, has only briefly been to that planet. If you go to Scadrial, right? On Scadrial, you're going to have a high percentage of the population, cosmologically, that are going to have access to one of the Hemalurgy arts, right? Same thing on Roshar. And indeed, the people are going to be invested on a level that is beyond the others. This is my in-world canon reason. The people just don't come down with colds very often or have tooth decay very often and things like that. Like, on the primary shard worlds, we're talking about people who are just naturally highly invested. All the other worlds, though, you're still going to have the occasional pop-up of magic here and there. You're still going to have effects of being in the Cosmere and things like that. Just much smaller chances, and the magic's probably going to be less likely to be planet-destroying potential and things like that, like happened on Ashen.
With enough Stormlight, could a bondsmith bond a shard to something?
With enough investiture, yeah, that's viable. Good question.
Now, speaking of the Stormlight Archive, if you want to have a mini magnet version of the entire series, make sure to check out my store in the link below. I put these together myself, and they're an awesome way to decorate your fridge, give as a gift to a fellow Worldhopper, and help support the channel. You can choose from the Stormlight Archive, Mistborn Eras 1 or 2, the standalone books, and even the entire collection.
Is
Hoid's hair naturally white, and does that mean anything?
It is now. I don't know what you call naturally.
Can I rephrase then?
Yes, you can.
Was he born with white hair?
He was not born with white hair.
So one of my favorite things about the Cosmere is like the mixture of science with magic. And so I was theorizing on ways you could do like space travel with spaceships between planets. So my theory is that we know ways that you can store investiture. We know ways you can like shield that as well. So thinking if you put like super invested object at the front of your ship and opened it up, potentially creating a perpendicularity to put the whole ship into the cognitive realm.
Very interesting theory, Rappo. Very interesting theory. I like that theory a lot. You got your Rappo card. I really like that you can theorize along these lines. And not to say too much, but people have been able to figure out how I'm going to do it because the fundamentals of the magic are there, and that just tickles me. It makes me excited.
In Bands of Mourning, the party scene.
Yes.
Hoid was outside, talked with Wax. Chris is inside, talked with Wax. Were there any other Worldhoppers present, and if so, how many?
At least one was present, probably two.
I believe that you can reasonably assume that humans and Parshendi at some time mixed, resulting in horn eaters with their red hair and hearty stomachs, Herdazians with their fingernails, and Thalens with their eyebrows, maybe. I don't know about that one. However, Aeamians, like Axes the Collector, have blue, changeable skin, and this doesn't seem like a Parshendi trait at all.
It is not.
So, is it possible that there was another race welcomed onto the planet like humans were?
Raffo.
How do you think pushing and pulling on liquid metals would work?
It would work, but it'd be messy.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, it would definitely work. You could do it. In fact, you can find all kinds of things with ferrofluids and whatnot that would show you kind of how it would work. I visualize it working similar to some of those things, where you get some of those pretty cool patterns.
Hoid recounts the story of Jarek, which kind of had me wondering if Jarek is going to come back if he's one of the original vessels. And so kind of, before you wrap on me, by process of elimination of what we revealed of the other vessels, genders and names, the only one left could be Whimsy, and Hoid just happens to call him a whimsical child. So, Rappo.
Could Hoid play a video game that requires killing/doing harm?
It depends on what his mindset is, right?
Oh, okay.
My question is about Kelsier and his body, cognitive shadows stapled body.
Yeah.
Is it a chondra, or does he not look like he did?
It is his actual bones.
Where's his flesh?
Well, that you'll have to Rappo. We might write that story someday. But it is his actual bones. Is Edgley Hoid's younger twin sister? No. What an interesting question.
What's coming down the pipe that no one's asking about that you're the most excited for people to start asking about?
I'm embracing myself for the next run, right? Like, we have the 3 modern day Mistborn books, and then it's back to Stormlight. And that's what's in the pipeline. I do think that Fires of December is one of my strongest books ever, and I'm very proud of that one. But it's another Hoid story. It's like Trust, so it's not for everyone. But it's not that I'm anticipating and wanting, it's I'm bracing myself for the weird things I'm going to do to you in the back half of Stormlight.
Is there a certain book you haven't written yet? That book is the one you're just really anticipating?
Oh yeah, Hoid's backstory is going to be real difficult to write, but really fun. And there are multiple times where I'm like, I'm going to write this down, and I'm like, no, I can't do it yet. If I start doing this, I'll get completely sidetracked by that.
At the end of Rhythm of War,
Yes.
a community told that someone came into the presence of cultivation and acknowledged her as a verdant presence.
Yes.
And so would that make cultivation a verdant dragon? And then are other dragons along the lines of matching up with the board type? And would there be bone dragon?
This is yes. Let's give you a yes rather than a Rappo. So yes, these are not physical, but they are philosophical alignments. Okay. Does that make sense?
And bone dragon?
Yes, philosophical minded. But this is you're pushing toward the acres, and it's not the acres. And I see you doing that. That's where the mistake is being made, right? And so you need to realign to the 16, not to the acres. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So variant is an unfortunate term that I use, but it does not correlate there. It correlates to the 16. Okay? All right. If that wasn't confusing enough.
Assuming that you had a perfect knowledge of hemalurgy,
yes.
Is there a property in the Cosmere that you couldn't steal with it?
A hemalurgic spike has to be of a certain size to store certain amounts of investiture. I can imagine that there would be a highly improbable size of a spike you would need to, for instance, try to steal the power of a shard of Agnosium. Is it theoretically possible? I'm not sure if there is enough metal in the Cosmere, right?
Swap ruin and preservation with honor and cultivation. How would you imagine the magic systems of those places changing or evolving?
So it is a hard extrapolation because let's say honor and cultivation come to Scadrial. There's no spren. So how do their magic systems work? Does cultivation create spren? Right? Because they created a bunch of spren, but they had a model and a pattern. They're like, wow, we'll do this and extrapolate it. Would they come up with something else? Would they have talking bits of metal that you're carrying around that are your spren? That's possible, right? Like metal tools but awakening metal is really dangerous.
At the end of Rhythm of War, there's a bunch of people still occupying the tower when the defenses are turned on, but they are nowhere to be found at the start of Wind and Truce.
Right.
Wouldn't there be like thousands of prisoners of war that the Alethi have suddenly found themselves with?
There are, yes. But a lot of them got out. They were just shoving them out, right? Like they didn't have the resources to deal with that many prisoners of war. And so what you really have is a whole bunch of singers in the mountains.
When the 16 shards at Agnosium got split up, will he ever come back together? Because you've had like 2 or more come together. Will he ever reform?
Rapho! That is a giant Rapho.
If you were a shard vessel and you were really bothered by the intent, would making an astronomical amount of god metal help with that intense corruption?
I feel like it might not work. I feel like you'd still be so deeply connected to that you're not able to really siphon it off. I think it's still going to influence you on the same level.
Okay, so Autonomy didn't slam dunk a moon-sized piece of god metal into the Chaldean sun to make it glow with investiture.
No. Good. Well, if she did, it wasn't in order to try to get rid of the intent.
In Tress's book, the last illustration is Hoid against Renarin, and Hoid has a very particular shirt with Mer's flower. Does that indicate that Kelsier has interest in Nomar?
That is a canon shirt that Wit has, but it's Wit's shirt.
So that's a pan against Kelsier?
Yeah.
In Dawnshard, when Risen's looking at a mural, it's an exploding sun into 4 pieces, and then each of them is broken 4 from there. Based on this, would it be reasonable to assume 4 shards of similar intent could be able to form like a super shard without the issues that Sazed is encountering, for example, like, say, Honor, Valor, Mercy, and the last maybe unknown shard like Wisdom or something like that?
That is a correct line of theorizing.
As you're doing your screenplay and you're transitioning to a new medium, how do you balance the magic structure that you've built and the integrity of that with a new way of showing?
Excellent question. Where I'm going with this on Mistborn is that I am trying to keep the magic system integrity of it in continuity, but not on screen. For instance, I'm probably not going to mention Copper Clouds or Seeking in the first film, just to keep the number of powers down. But that means that Clubs is probably not going to be a main character, but you will probably still see him. Does that make sense? That is my goal right now, is to find a way that when you watch the film, it's in continuity with the books, but not 100% continuity, right? Like, he's not in the meetings that he was in the books, but he's there.